Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Tolly Carr. It is Atlanta, HBCU Game Day Studios. We might have to start calling this the Rewind Corner, but today is not a rewind. We'll have that for you later in the week, but I got a really big surprise. And you can't have a big surprise unless you have the big boys in the house. What's up, everybody? On your screen, you see me, you see Uncle Neely, and you see Coach Carl Reed from 24/7 Sports. Fellas, week one is in the books. We've had like a week and a half of football. We had week 0. We had some Thursday games, some Saturday games, some Sunday games. So the season is back. I want to start with Coach Carl Reed because I have not had a chance to talk to this brother all summer long. Before we jump into football, though, Coach, Coach Prime, fishing in the offseason, how competitive did it get out on the boat?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, Tolly, it got pretty chippy out there on the boat. It got as competitive as you can expect it to be. I did catch more fish than Coach Prime that day, but it's one of those games that never ends. I'm just in the lead in a forever game.
Yeah, you got to give Coach a chance to get his space back. All right, let's talk some football here, fellas. Carl Reed, answer me this question. Should NC State, should Oregon, should Colorado, should all these teams who just warm things up in week one, might have had some first half struggles, had to get things together, but they still went on to win the game. Should the sky be falling for these teams?
Tyler, you never want to overreact to week one. Week one is actually the time to beat somebody if you want to upset somebody, because we don't know what kind of team you're going to have, especially with the transfer portal. When you're dealing with new players, when you're dealing with guys who are new to rosters and you haven't been familiar with them before, you can expect some surprises. And so I would never let week one rattle me like that. I would always keep it cool and just move forward. You're always glad when you get a win because people don't understand how hard it is to win at this level.
All right, Neely, you've been in practice for a couple of days since the week one game has been in the books. It was a Thursday game, so some extra preparation. The sky did not fall on you in Boulder in the last couple of days, did it?
Absolutely not. No one has reached over there, flipped that acrylic clear lid and hit the panic button at all. Much like Coach Carl Reed was talking about Coach Prime and his fishing prowess, he has a high motor when it comes to being competitive. And so, of course, the standard is the standard. And he said in his post-game press conference that it's one of those things where you won on the scoreboard but don't necessarily feel like you won the game. But he also had to admit we won the game, and that's what's important. I agree with my brother, Coach Carl Reed there. You don't want to overreact to week one. Good teams find a way to win close ball games. Everything that you wanted to clean up and get better at in the offseason, whether that's the offensive line play, the defensive line play, or minimizing penalties, all three of those boxes got checked and you won the game. So no one's panicking.
All right, Carl, watching the game against North Dakota State this past Thursday, what did you like? What were some things that you say, hey, between games 2 and 3, definitely need to sharpen up those areas?
Well, what I like, Tolly, is obviously I think that Colorado can make the argument that they have the 2 best players in the country in Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. They made play after play after play, and you really win the game because you have them and the other team doesn't. So that's the thing I like. On the thing that I don't like, or I shouldn't say, I think it's too early to say you don't like it, but we just have got to make sure that we secure the edges a little bit on the pass rush. I think that we had a little trouble with the speed rush at times, but when they went speed to power, which is when you're trying to go outside of a guy and run back through him, I think our tackles set well on that, which was much better. But they got to get a little more depth on the speed rush. But other than that, that would be me nitpicking. I think we'll be fine. I think that from a standpoint of the run game, I think North Dakota State brings you some different problems because they fit the run with 7 and most people fit it with 5 or 6. So when you're playing the game without a tight end and they fit in the run with 7, you got 5 guys to block 7 guys, so it makes it tougher to run. But because you have Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter requires 2 guys to defend him, that can change the number, and that's what happens when you saw Jimmy Horn run the crossing route that he got for a touchdown. Travis pulls a guy out the way, and it clears the middle of the field because they're fitting with 7 instead of 6. So that defender who could have played the mesh coming across the middle on Horn was actually fitting on the run game. And of course, Shador found him because he has an incredibly high IQ. So I like that part of what they did offensively.
And Neely, let's talk about some of the things that Carl Reed just laid out for us. Let's start with the rush, and we talked about lanes and containment and all of that on Friday on the rewind. Are those things that have been addressed in the last couple of practices?
They're being worked on. They're being addressed. You are what you put on film. Nebraska, our next opponent, has film now. And so they saw the very things that Carl Reed is talking about. One of the things that I want to underscore, put a little boldface on, is that when you look at our edges, you look at the tackles. On one side, you got a true freshman in Jordan Seaton. And on the other side, you got Tyler Brown, who had to take a year off from the NCAA because his waiver wasn't approved, and playing a new position there. I think those guys are only going to get better as days and reps and times and games go on. So the arrow is certainly pointing up. Some of my takeaways, Tolly, from things I liked but also didn't like. We were the number 2 most penalized team in the nation last year. And this particular game against North Dakota State, whereas we had the fewest penalties we've ever had in a game since Coach Prime has been in Colorado, those penalties came at the wrong time. We had 3 penalties on defense. All 3 of those penalties led to a score. You had Shador Sanders, who got the personal foul. That was about to be held to a field goal there. You had 2 other offsides and a hands to a face that extended drives. One became a touchdown, the other a field goal. So you're looking at 13 points on the board that your defense gift wrapped them. And so if you clean up those defensive penalties, clean up the timing of those penalties situationally, understanding risk reward when you're about to do something, this team is certainly headed in the right direction.
Carl, I love the way you educate us on football, as well as you, Uncle Neely. I don't want to leave you out there. When we watch the game, instead of just watching the ball and where the ball goes, what are some things we can learn that are just fun for an X's and O's guy to watch the way that Colorado uses Travis Hunter, not only because of his ability, but how he can dictate what the other team's defense is going to have to do?
So if you're watching it and you watch the box, which is where the defensive linemen and the linebackers play, when you run in a spread type of situation and you got a guy like Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, you want to have some simple rules. And if it's a 5 or a 6-man box, you're going to always feel like that's a light box where you can run the football, and that's when you should look to see your running backs get involved. If it's a 8-man box, you're going to look like you're going to throw the ball almost 95% of the time if you see an 8-man. And that 8-man could also consider it 8 if the safeties come down to 10 yards or closer to the football. Now, if it's 7 men, you're going to either run or pass predicated on a personnel matchup. What a personnel matchup is going to always be, how are they defending Travis Hunter? If it's 7 guys in the box and they guarding a man-to-man, you want to throw him the ball. If they doubling him and playing with 7, you want to look to go to Jimmy Horn or one of the other receivers. Football is a numbers game, but great players change the math, and Travis Hunter is a great player, so he can change the math because they're going to either play him with a corner and a safety over the top. They're going to play him with a corner and a safety or a linebacker in the middle of the field to take underneath. They got to identify early on how they're going to guard Travis, and that's going to let you know what the run and the pass ratio is going to be. So anytime you're looking at the game of football, you want to start from the box back and look at how many people are committed to stopping the run, and that's going to let you know how you're going to be attacking the defense from a run-pass standpoint, from a percentage standpoint.
Neely, that's interesting there, what Coach just broke down, because a lot of people want to talk about Colorado running the ball, how often they run the ball, what type of plays they draw up from the run. But it's more complex, as Carl just broke it down, but yet simple, that you just don't say, hey, we're going to run the ball this amount of times because that's what we're supposed to do. There's a lot of things that dictate how that's going to happen.
Yeah, let me tell you this, brothers, and I hope that Coach Carl Reed, because I appreciate his opinion so much, will validate what I'm about to say and put his stamp of approval on it. You got a book out there called Football 101. But when you have Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, you can throw that book away. You don't have to get put into a box of having a percentage of run plays, a percentage of pass plays. You don't have to get in the box of what your scheme is going to be predicated on, this or that. You have the two most prolific players in college football right now on your team. You can do a lot of different things because you have that. And so when people say Colorado needs to run the ball more, you have to keep in mind when you're running the ball more, that's taking the ball out of Shador hands and thereby Travis hands and thereby Jimmy Horn's hands. So you have to be careful on how much you want to do that when you have such prolific talent on that side of the ball. And I'm just like Coach Carl Reed. He talks about looking at the box. If you want to not follow the ball or just watch the ball the whole time, when the quarterback comes out of huddle, Shador Sanders, one of the things he's doing is seeing where the safety is. Which way is that help going to go? And he's eliminating one or two of the routes that he has to choose from before the ball is even snapped, which is why he's able to move this offense down the field. Sometimes he gets caught trying to check, look, and holding the ball a little long. I think the one sack that we got this past game against North Dakota State was more on the quarterback than it was the offensive line because of that. But when you have the talent again of Shador and Travis, man, you can throw the handbook out the window and just make sure you're getting the ball in the two best playmakers' hands in college football.
Neely, I think you bring up a great point there. Something that I learned many years ago when I was coaching high school from Bobby Petrino, a legendary offensive coach in college football, is there's a system called FTS, which means feed the studs. And what his philosophy was, you need to figure out how you're going to get the best three players on offense the ball 90% of the times. And sometimes your best three players are receivers. Sometimes it's two running backs and a tight end. Sometimes it's all the backs. But whoever the three best players on offense are, those are the guys that need to be touching the ball 90% of the time, and it just so happens that those guys are receivers right now. So you could expect more passing than you do running in a situation like that.
Coach, tell us this. Carl Reed from 24/7 Sports. Jimmy Horn Jr. is a talent within himself, obviously. But how much easier does the game come to him playing alongside Travis Hunter?
Well, it's definitely easier because you have to decide where you're going to put your number one corner, and that's going to typically be on Travis. So when you're dealing with Travis from that standpoint and often taking a safety and a linebacker as well, it allows Jimmy to work the middle of the field, and you don't have linebackers and safeties that can defend him. You make it awfully hard to play defense on those guys.
It is a pick your poison for opposing defenses, Neely.
Yeah, it really is. Let me tell you this. Travis Hunter walked out of Folsom Field the other night with 3 touchdowns. Jimmy Horn walked out of there with 198 yards and 1 touchdown. That is going to happen again as this season rolls on. But what is also going to happen is LaJohntay Wester is going to have a 200-yard game. Will Shepard is going to have a 200-yard game. You're going to have Omarion Miller, who was a freshman standout last year with the big game, have another big game. Shador Sanders is going to find the matchup and exploit it. And week after week, that's not going to always be Travis Hunter, as dynamic as he is, nor is it going to be Jimmy Horn. But there's going to be somebody in that receiving room that emerges because no defense can cover everybody. And this receiving room, I think, is the top receiving room in the nation. We'll see as the season goes on and the stats goes on. Certainly the most prolific in the Big 12. You can't cover them all, Tolly. Someone's going to find the open spot, the green grass, and Shador, given enough time from the offensive line, is going to find them. And when it comes to Jimmy Horn, his yards after the catch, just like LaJohntay Wester, are just phenomenal. If they catch the ball, that first guy's going to miss. They're going for 30, 40, 50 yards after the catch.
Coach, we have seen pretty much, all quarterbacks at least get a shot out there now that we're moving on to week 2. Is anybody close from what you have seen to the talent that Shador Sanders has put out there at quarterback?
Well, you got some really good quarterbacks. You got Carson Beck, who's doing a good job at Georgia. You got Quinn Ewers at Texas. I was actually really impressed with what Arch Manning did when he came from Texas, when he came in the game for Texas. Cam Ward put on a show as well for the Miami Hurricanes against Florida. But I'm going to go right now with Shador Sanders as QB1 when you're talking about the most NFL ready, the most draft potential, and he's getting tutored by an offensive coordinator that has nothing but NFL experience. So the most pro-ready game right now is Shador Sanders.
Yeah, I love that assessment as well. I think, when you look at Shador's college history, has never not started. He's never not been QB1. Hell, you can go back to his high school days. For the past 8 years, he's been QB1. Much of that time in college, he's has a different coordinator each year. He's had to deal with a lack of true protection. And one of the things that the NFL, when you're picking high in the first round, you probably have a bad team. That's why you're picking high in the first round. And so this guy knows how to get it done under duress without blaming people around him, taking responsibility. But if you ask me who else is out there, Tolly, one of the names that Coach Carr Reed dropped. I love what I saw in Cam Ward, not only what he did with it at Miami, because they were on the road at Florida in the swamp. To have that kind of poise, I think gives him a check mark as well as someone to keep an eye on this season.
He kind of reminded me of Shador from the standpoint of when they spoke to him after the game. You could tell that his mindset was well beyond that of a freshman. He talked about how prepared he was and, celebrate for 30 minutes and then he's on. This isn't the Miami show here, but definitely impressed with what we saw out of Cam Ward for sure, both on the game and on the mic. In the game and on the mic. Coach Carl Reed, how would you rate what is ahead of Deion Sanders this year coaching Colorado? And I don't mean coaching the players, but from the, just being in the public. When he was at Jackson State, the national media was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Coach Prime at HBCUs. He gets to Colorado. It's a kind of feel it out first year, inheriting a team that went 1-10. This year it's like, all right, everybody's coming for you now. It's a different feel. How would you rate what claws out is what I was struggling to say. You start to get 50 and some of those words, just that recall's not there. The claws are out in the media this year. How would you rate what is ahead? Not that it means anything to wins and losses, but just what Coach Prime will be dealing with this year.
Well, he's going to be dealing with some haters for sure. And it comes from being in the spotlight and comes from being who he is. I was talking to a buddy of mine at 24/7 the other day, and he says the four most polarizing players in his lifetime in college sports have been Tim Tebow, Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel from the Texas A&M years, Caitlin Clark, and Coach Prime. There's been no other four people in the last 20 to 30 years that have been more impactful and more polarizing in the space of college sports. If you're a YouTuber, if you're a reporter, if you do anything that's related to Coach Prime, it's going to get clicks, it's going to get views, people are going to be opinionated about it. The important thing for Coach Prime, and him and I talk about this all the time, Colorado just has to win football games. And winning takes care of any issue that could potentially come up. And even after he wins, he's still going to have people that are going to be hating and they're going to be detracting because they don't want you to win football games with the style and with the way that he chooses to do it. It's a lot of old guard that is having issues adjusting to the transfer portal era, to the NIL era, and that's something that he has embraced, and people don't like it, but you can't control how other people feel.
Yeah,
I love that, Coach Carr Reed. I absolutely love that. One of the things I think we can expect, Tolly, is even when the wins come, as Coach said, you're going to still have some haters out there because one thing about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, the goalpost just continues to move. Here recently, when he took the stance that he wasn't going to take questions from a journalist who never showed any interest of being fair and was making personal attacks in his columns. Well, now you fast forward and Stephen A. Smith is taking the side of Pat McAfee, who stood up to a journalist who was handling him wrong. So at 1 minute, Coach Prime shouldn't be doing something. Then someone else does something similar. It's okay for them. Dabo Swinney says he's no longer taking live questions from people and no one says a word. Coach Prime says he's not going to take a question from somebody. The world is on fire. But as Coach Carl Reed articulated that winning solves everything. People are going to want to talk about Shador and Travis for Heisman. None of that matters if you're not winning games. People want to talk about what Coach Prime is doing here and the way he has accentuated and used the portal. None of that matters if you don't win games. So inside this building, the noise is really blocked out, and the guys here are focused on winning ball games.
Sometimes on my social media feed, I see brothers going at Coach Prime, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, what? I mean, people that don't even have a dog in the fight. I'm like, bro, if I don't like you or I don't want to deal, you don't come out of my mouth. Like, your name does not even come out of my mouth. I don't get the infatuation. There's a lot of psychology that maybe we could break down about people. Let's break down some numbers, though. Neely sent us this information, Coach, for an irrelevant program. Insert sarcasm. 4.8 million viewers for the first game on a Thursday night. Peaked at over 5.5 million. Carl Reed winning only amplifies this, but anytime Colorado comes to town, man, it's the 2024 version of the Beatles.
Well, whether they come to cheer for you or whether they come to hate on you or whether they come to see you win or see you lose, they still there to see you. Everybody is tuned in, Tommy.
Neely, that doesn't hurt.
No, not at all. You know, as a lifelong Cowboys fans, I'm used to it. The model that Jerry Jones has there. You go into Cowboys Stadium and it looks like the visiting team because they bought up all the tickets and they're in there booing. But either way, you're buying those $20 hot dogs and a $50 beer. So what does it matter, you know, to the guy who owns it all? You're going to have people who show up to boo Colorado. You're going to have people who show up to cheer it. We're heading to Nebraska this week, 90,000 plus in a sea of red. Not going to be a friendly environment at all. That game is going to be on NBC, you know, their main game that evening. So once again, here's another weekend, another Saturday, where when guys like Fonbaum say that Colorado is irrelevant, network TV says it's very relevant. We want them.
You know, Coach Carl Reed talked about last season what Coach Prime's true value should be with the contract. And anytime you start to chart analytics and those numbers are in the millions, people start to pay attention. Neely, you sent the information. 2.26 million followers on social media. The year before Coach Prime arrived at Colorado, it was just 268,000. $10 million plus home game direct economic impact into the Boulder community. And Neely, I don't know how you would gauge this, but if you just gauged content creators' impact from Coach Prime being in a position to be reported on as a college head coach, I would give you, Neely, and I'm just knowing the type of impact, you know, I've been involved in on a small scale as a small publishing company when Coach Prime was at Jackson State. That number is easy, 100 million plus in revenue that otherwise would have gone other places or would not have been filled. Am I crazy? That just in the digital sphere is easy, $100 billion plus spread out across whoever's in the game.
I think it's probably a low number, Tolly. If you could really go out there and just really put a fine point on everybody who's covering Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, Colorado content and putting it out there, I think that's probably a low number math-wise. And when you talk about the impact on the local business community, the hotels being sold out, the restaurants being standing room only with wait lines around the block on game day. You know, when we were all at Jackson State, I put it out there then as it relates to a coaching contract that when you go to a restaurant and get suspect service from a wait staff, you're tipping 10% no matter what. And I think you're going to approach the same thing here that didn't happen in Mississippi, that the business community, whether it's NIL or pool of money, you know, to make sure they keep what they have here in this unicorn of Deion Sanders, everybody around you making millions on top of millions, somehow, some way, a percentage of that, a slice of that needs to go back and tribute to the guy that helped you all make it.
Coach Reed, I'm not going to sit here and try to count money in your pocket. This is not the question I'm about to ask you. But you, as a college football analyst at 24/7 Sports, can you look at your time there and say, I can tell a difference? There's a different feeling pre-Deion, post-Deion as a college football coach.
Well, Tolly, I'll say it in 3 words. Business is booming.
I love it. I love it.
No lies detected. No lies detected. All right, guys, let's talk about Nebraska. They call it Hate Week, right, Neely?
It is. It's rivalry week. There's no red allowed in the building whatsoever because that's their color. So this is hate week. And then we have rivalry week next week with Colorado State. But first things first, a road trip to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Coach Carl Reed, we saw the game last year, two different teams. I would imagine Nebraska might have improved quarterback play this time around than what we saw, roughly 365 days ago. We've, kind of charted where Colorado is one game in. What are your expectations? What do you anticipate with the game coming up against Nebraska?
With Tolly last year never matters in the game of football. I told my son one time, I said, if you kissed a girl last year, you still can't feel it today. So we gotta focus on what's going on with these teams. Nebraska is much improved through the transfer portal. They have a very good young freshman quarterback in Dominic Raiola, and they are going to come in motivated. However, Colorado is also very much improved, especially along the offense and defensive line. So I expect it to be a really good game. Emotions will play a huge part of it in the first quarter. But after that, it's going to settle down, and guys are going to have to play disciplined football and make really good football plays.
Raiola, that's the kid that turned down Georgia. He was committed to Georgia. They were talking about him on the radio here, and then he ends up going to Nebraska. So that's a highly touted quarterback they have there.
Yeah, when you look at these two teams, they're completely different from last year. And I love, Coach Reed, what you told your son about kissing the girl a year ago. But, when you kissed her once, you remember it, and you can kiss her again. You can go back. And so I'm leaning on that the guys who were in this locker room last year will remember and recall the dominant performance that they had here at home, and hopefully that will travel with them. But you, again, Coach, you're spot on. This team has, some different pieces. Their team has some different pieces. They do have a new quarterback who I think is improved over what quarterback we faced last year. But as a true freshman, I think you got to test him. I think you got to move him off his spot. I think you got to go at him and make him uncomfortable and prove he's that guy. But Nebraska is who Nebraska is. It doesn't matter, when you change coaches or programs. And this head coach there at Nebraska, and that coaching staff there, they're offensive line, offensive-minded guys. So I think they're going to still play some Nebraska football and try to smash them out in the trenches and determine that even with this prolific quarterback, we can also run the ball and control the clock. So I think it's going to come down to the D-line stopping that run. And after you stop that run, make sure you can get a rush to the quarterback. But more importantly, our offensive line, giving Shador just a little bit of breathing room, because with the talent that we have in receivers, I don't think there's a team that we're facing that has a secondary that can cover all our guys at the same time.
What type of environment? This was a home game last year for Colorado, on the road at Nebraska this year. I honestly hadn't paid attention to Nebraska prior to Colorado and Coach Prime. 1996 was the last time I think I watched a Nebraska game. Tell us about the environment, Neely. Coach Reed, what can the Colorado fans expect to see there in Nebraska?
Well, Nebraska is going to, on offense, they're going to still try to run the football. Not the way they were doing back in 1996 with the triple option with Tommy Frazier and Lawrence Phillips, Tolly. Not going that far back.
That was my day.
They still do want to establish the run game. They are going to use their quarterback, but he's not going to throw it 40 or 50 times a game. They're going to probably, I think, for them to throw it in the 25 range, they will try to test them vertically. I don't know how good their weapons are on the perimeter to do a lot of vertical testing. Defensively, Tony White, very good defensive coordinator. I'm interested to see the plan he's going to have to guard Travis Hunter. He's normally a 4-3 guy, but I'm really interested to see how he deploys his secondary guys to try to slow down Travis and Jimmy.
Neely?
I like that, Coach Reed, and I think one of the things that on this side of the equation, being Colorado, we're going to have to do is you can't start off slow like you did with North Dakota State, because what you're going to do if you start off slow is only going to feed the frenzy that 93,000 see a red. And at some point with the volume there, volume as in the loudness you can't hear, you have got to take that crowd out of the game, and you take them out of the game by starting out fast and getting some points up early to make sure they know they're in a dogfight. Because we went to Oregon last year, and it was one of the loudest places this team had played, and some of the players individually in their travels have played. I'm expecting Nebraska to be louder than Oregon was last year.
Neely, you did get love in Oregon. You had people coming up to you saying, "Oh my God, it's Uncle Neely. I watch you all the time." Nebraska's a little different, Neely. Do you anticipate?
They were Colorado fans who had made the trip to Oregon. They weren't Oregon fans saying that. And so I'm not expecting any love from Nebraska fans to the pregame show of the big boys. I think they're going to be focused on being loud and making sure Shador can't hear. And that's something we got to take out the steam out early by making sure we don't start slow.
Now, Tyler, you do know that Neely is a celebrity now. Everywhere I go, people ask me what kind of dude he is, man, and can I get them a meeting with him? Can I get them to sit down? I get just as many people that ask me about Neely as that ask me about Prime.
Hey, Neely.
Check is in the mail, brother. I appreciate it.
I mean, so you're telling us, Neely, you're not going to take your beard oil to Nebraska. You're not going to be selling any beard oil on the streets in Nebraska.
And I think they got enough corn oil. Yeah, they good on oil.
All right. Before we go, I want to leave on this note. Carl Reed drops some gems on social media if you don't follow him. Coach, I don't remember when you posted it, but I remember seeing it a couple of weeks ago. And now that high school football is back, college football is back. Neely, this is what Coach said. He said, "I have never in my years of coaching and playing football seen any good information given out when a parent tells his son to come over to the fence for a chat during the game."
I saw that. I liked it. I reshared it. I shared it with my coaching friends back at Mendenhall High School football because right behind our bench was the track, and right behind the track was the fence. And every former player and parent leans on that fence and tries to help us coach every night. And I've never heard good advice come from that fence.
So I'm going to say this, Tolly. Now, I was a high school football coach. I'm a state championship winning coach. We were very good. And I go to games all the time, and I probably know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I don't bother the kids. I don't bother the coaches. I don't really give input because I'm not in those meeting rooms. I'm not at practice. I don't know what they're asking the kid to do, right? And I don't know why they made the decision they made. So I just stay there. I keep quiet, and I just enjoy the game like a regular fan. And if I wanted to coach, I'll go coach.
Well, that it was funny, and it was so true. And I just thought about all the people I've seen at that fence telling their son, come here. That was some good stuff. All right, so guys, excited. Your excitement level, Coach Carl Reed, we'll start with you, and then we'll get out of here. Your excitement level to watch, to see what's going to happen with Colorado and Nebraska this weekend.
I'm very excited because I know how much work both Coach Prime and his entire staff and the kids have put in, and I know what their mission is, and so I'm just excited to see them see it through.
All right, Neely, this will be a big win if they beat Nebraska 2 years in a row, just because what it means emotionally to the fan base and everybody else, and a win is a win. How excited are you to get down there and be engulfed in that sea of red this weekend?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Tolly. Historically, Nebraska has owned this matchup. They have the lion's share of the wins. But here lately with Coach Prime and even before, Colorado has been able to handle business with Nebraska. So it's been a long time coming. I know they're looking for some get back and payback, but we're going to try to make sure that is delayed even further. I think that this nationally televised game on NBC is going to be looked at as a measuring stick to see where this program truly is, because no matter what Nebraska has been through lately, they are still seen as a powerful football program in their rich history. And so when you look at going on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska to face your longtime rival at Sea of Red, 93,000 strong, and come out of there to win is a big feather in the cap for the program.
Oh, that's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. And even though it is 93,000, when you watch NBC this weekend, you see that guy in the middle of your screen right now? I don't know how he's going to do it, but somehow, before that broadcast is over, you are going to see that beard on your TV screen. So just give a shout out from home. It's going to happen. Say, there he is, Uncle Neely.
Coach Reed, it'd be your own people, man. It'd be your own people.
Every time.
He's going to be there. He's going to make it happen. I don't know how he does it. He Neely don't miss no meals, and he don't miss no camera appearances. Those two things will not happen. All right. For Coach Carl Reed, for Uncle Neely, I'm Tolly Carr. Thank you guys for hanging out with the big boys right here on the Pregame Show Network. Enjoy that game this weekend. A lot of content coming to you this week, so make sure you are subscribed and locked in, and we'll see you the next time.